tell me, both of you, what do you think are the specific conflicts, the specific concessions that both parties need to make to ensure an agreement between the Israelis and Palestinians? It's come in many flavors over time, but your experience being at the table and really knowing these parties and alone, you really working on this and studying this in depth and understanding the history. What are the specific concessions, the major concessions? We could be here until next year talking about concessions. What are the major concessions? Say, Jerusalem, refugees, border, and security.
Well, I'll speak briefly, and then Alon, who knows much more about the subject than I do, will correct me and give his own view. It's described in our book. The Palestinians want the right of return of the several hundred thousand Palestinians who formerly lived in that region, what is now Israel, and the West Bank, to return. They want the unrestricted right of return. Lands that Alon described and lands within Israel itself. Israelis, of course, are adamantly opposed to that. And because it would completely alter and undermine the Jewish character of the state of Israel. I believe that Palestinians are not going to get the full right of return. I don't think any Israeli government can or would do so. When Ehud Olmert negotiated with Abbas during what's called the Annapolis process under President George W. Bush, they actually exchanged some numbers, limited numbers, family reunifications, exceptional cases, 5,000 a year, 15,000, numbers like that. I think that's what that's going to end up. On the other hand, Jerusalem, which is probably the most emotionally difficult issue of all, I believe that the Palestinians will never accept a state that does not have Jerusalem as its capital. Since the 1967 war, Israel has controlled Jerusalem. After the war, it annexed territory that had formerly been in the West Bank to now increase the size of Jerusalem.
So what does it look like? Is it the capital of both countries? What does it look like, the capital of both countries?
Mm-hmm. Different process. Mm-hmm. Different process. Now,
how do you control that security-wise?
Well, it's very difficult. First, let me say, what is or is not Jerusalem is a subject of dispute. I mean, the Palestinians, nor the United States, nor any other country in the world has accepted the Israeli annexation of West Bank territory that they now call East Jerusalem. But for the overwhelming majority of Israelis, probably as close to 100% as you can get, they do accept it. They don't think of Israelis who live there as settlers. To them, this is Jerusalem, even though legally it's not accepted by anybody else in the world. So that's the political reality. But that area includes many Palestinians. There are, in Jerusalem itself, 350,000? Yeah. 350,000 Palestinians. So, yes, there would be some kind of physical division. And what Clinton said in his parameters, what most of those who've looked at it have said, the areas that are now Jewish will be part of Israel, and the areas in which Palestinians live will be part of the state of Palestine. And that, I think, is the formula that is likely to obtain at the end, although that is extremely difficult for Israel, and many Israelis won't accept that, just as many Palestinians will not accept less than the full right of return for their people. What you can add in.
What are the major concessions that both parties need to make to have an agreement?
I think Senator Mitchell covered most of them. What I'll say about Jerusalem is that, already today, the city is very divided. If you put a GPS device in every Israeli Jew and color-coded blue, and you put another GPS device in every Palestinian Arab and color-coded green, and you just follow it for a day, you will see exactly where the border should be in Jerusalem. And already today, the Muslim holy sites in Jerusalem are controlled by the Jordanian Waqf. So there's already precedent for how some of these things can be governed. And even the leader of the Israeli Labor Party, Isaac Herzog, recently said that he not only favors some unilateral withdrawals from the West Bank, but also from Jerusalem itself. So this is the great irony. Israel's going to withdraw from the West Bank unilaterally, they'll withdraw from Jerusalem unilaterally, and like Senator Mitchell said earlier, they're paying almost the entire price of a peace agreement without getting any concessions from the Palestinians in return.
It's better say withdrawing from parts of
Jerusalem, of course.
It's going to be very.
Yeah, no. Sorry I wasn't clear about that, yeah.
Senator Mitchell, you never miss a beat.
No.
You gotta watch these young guys.
But otherwise, the parameters that Clinton set out in 2000 are, they were put out in very precise detail because they reflected the conversations that Clinton was having at the time with Arafat and Barak. But the general framework that he established back then is more or less what most people expect would happen.
But if you're the Palestinian leader, say President Abbas or a future Palestinian leader, how do you say to your people, go back to an agreement you rejected in the past that now basically you're going to take? What do you have to change in the agreement? At that time, the Palestinians were pretty much, it was negotiated, as you're well aware, which you discuss in the book, almost 97% of the West Bank, plus land swaps of some Israeli territory to make up for those settlement blocks. What do you tell the Palestinian people? What's different in this future concession?
Please.
You get a state.
You get a state.
Mm-hmm. You get a state. You get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you get. You get, if you regard as a Palestinian, getting your own state so that you have the dignity, the self-esteem that comes with self-governance. I can't tell you how many Palestinians pull out of their pocket the Declaration of Independence and read back to me Thomas Jefferson's immortal words about the right for people to govern themselves. That's what they get. Mm-hmm. And that's what they have to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. You can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Mm-hmm. And they're not in a strong position. It is true that Abbas is getting more countries to recognize them. There are now about 160 countries that recognize Israel, almost 140 that recognize Palestine.
It doesn't make a difference.
It is true that they can fly their flag. It is true that they have won some semblance of these things, but they haven't got what they want. And they're not going to get it until there is a negotiation in which each side gets its objective and understands that the only way it can gain its objective is to accommodate the principal objective of the other side.